This is Kat with Agency Zoom. Excited to welcome Liv from Openly and then Caitlin from Quantum to Content Labs for this month. This one's going to be a little different. Normally for Content Labs, we either bring you in a subject matter expert, like some of our first ones, or an agency that really needed help. This time, we're bringing you an awesome carrier partner, and Liv certainly knows her stuff on both ends of the spectrum. And then just about one of the most badass women in insurance, Caitlin is here too, to
Hey
be
guys.
the voice of reason. So I think you guys have some history too that I might have missed, right?
We do.
I absolutely loved working with Liv when she was on the Quantum team earlier on in her insurance journey. We miss you, Liv.
Thank you. Yes, I got to fortunately be one of the first Quantum employees. I worked in a small agency space with one or two folks for a while and then got to be a part of their Allen call center, which is really special. So a lot of my ground level insurance knowledge comes from this lady right here. So I appreciate you, Caitlin.
You too. It was good times.
I'm excited to crash the homecoming. So this is a really fun, like bringing everybody together and having a girl squad on this is going to be pretty exciting.
That's the best for me. Having females in insurance kind of disrupting that a little bit. That's amazing.
I'm loving it. So where I started to bring something to the table so that you guys would, let me hang out at the party and all, was getting into some of our data with getting to work now in thousands and thousands and thousands of agencies across the country and having integrated texting and integrated email. We're seeing open rates, we're seeing response rates, we're able to measure what makes things successful. And then what I dug into more is not just affluent, but more of a relationship and what that means to balance it, because that's certainly a strong suit of the Quantum team. And that's what the InsurTech relationship that Openly really brings to the table, is the adaptiveness of what you're going to be able to present to your clients. So I dug into this a little bit and I wanted to, like I said, pull some of the information out. And this is Caitlin's first time seeing it. You guys can see the little Liv bubble up here. She's hanging out, but this is her first time seeing it. And I wanted to go through some of the methods to the madness of, pros and cons of how you guys are maybe running your sales team, and then get Caitlin's feedback on it. We've started studying in an outbound world, do you use one or two methods to communicate? Are you just calling people and just emailing them? Or are you using 3 or 4 methods? Do you call them? Do you email them? Do you text them? Do you interact with them on social media? And we've seen a pretty big boost in the success rate in initial conversation. So we go from 22.5% to just over 25% in your success rate on that. The other thing that's kind of fun in here, and I'll highlight just these ones, is you get a few more touches on outbound, which I know the Quantum team has no cold call reluctancy. You guys are pretty aggressive on your outbound and really go after it, and obviously get a ton of partnerships where you're generating inbound too. But that quantity of touches where somebody's comfortable, you're not overworking a lead to discomfort, is something that I think was pretty cool to see. And then a great conversation to have too about even an outbound lead initially becoming an inbound lead, a couple months later if their timing is better. So wanted to get initially, at least Caitlin, your feedback on that, some of that information, and see what your experiences said.
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to share my feedback. So Kat, could you just clarify for me, or maybe lead me in the direction of what you'd like feedback on first?
Yeah. So when we look at this, what this is telling us is if it's an outbound lead, column B here, what do we do? And if our only method of communication is voicemail, phone, and email, we get 6 touches. So we can send them, best practice down here is 3 calls and 3 emails. So that's what we're saying, your best practice, you're most likely to hit this 22.5% success rate if you go about it that way. And that's for outbound. If it's an inbound lead, somebody that came to you and is actively shopping, you get 4 more touches. You can get another call in there, and you can actually get 2 more emails in there, a first response email, and then a, hey, I'll see you later, this might not be working out email. So these were some of the initial ones that I thought were pretty cool as we start to see, again, that overworking of a lead and that relationship come through.
Right. Yeah. So with inbound leads, I'm curious. So with the 22% success rate there, is that people who were quoted and we had a conversation with them, or is that someone that ended up purchasing?
These are your first metric. This is your conversation to quoted metric. So this is that first conversion. So when we say 22%, you know, we're talking about 1 in 5. When we're talking about 25%, we're saying 1 in 4 of the people that you have as an outbound lead or an inbound lead make it to the next stage. You know, they're moving and they're scooting their little butts along at least.
Yes. So I love that you just mentioned the lead to quote conversion ratio, because I think this is a statistic that a lot of frontline insurance sales professionals either aren't aware of, they don't know how to drive that number, or they don't know what the number is. Maybe they don't know where to pull the reporting in their agency. But being able to drive your lead to quote conversion ratio is so important, because that's how you get enough at bats to even think about your close ratio. So imagine if you were only going to talk to 2 people today and you knew you were only going to get 2 leads today, how important it would be to you to make sure that you were overcoming objections to the quote so that you would be able to have a full conversation with both of those people. The reality is most of our sales teams are working far more than 2 leads a day. They're probably working up to 10 fresh leads per day, maybe more, maybe a little less, depending on, some agencies might use mortgage referrals, other agencies might use data leads or warm transfers. But you have to use the same technique and treat each person as if they're the only person you're going to talk to today. And so I think it's really powerful to know what the lead to quote conversion ratio is, so that then you can move the needle. And knowing that a lot of your clients are going to give you objections. So one of the first problems is reaching them. So making sure that you're following up. Most salespeople don't follow up long enough to get to touch number 6 or 8 or 10 to where it's going to turn into a quote. So using your system, your management system, to be able to help you stay organized so that you don't miss on those touches, I think is huge. And so if you fall out of the process, you're going to find yourself only ever chasing the newest lead that just came in once or twice and never reaching touch number 6, 8, or 10. And then at that point, I think it's just the knowing they're going to give you objections. Oh, I just switched insurance, or you know, who's Quantum again? Or why don't you call me at my renewal? And being ready so that you can overcome objections to the quote and have a full consultation with this person. Because if we can't get that far, there's just no sale to even talk about closing.
I love that you called out too how many touch points is important, but it's also a game of timing, because we see that in here too, even in this next section. We see how many days does it take to get through your best practice on some of these new outbound or new inbound, even before it does start that diminishing returns. And on outbound, where they didn't know you were going to be calling them, it's 2 more days, you know. And on inbound, you do have to move a little bit faster, but it's certainly still not, I only call the people from today, yesterday, or the day before. You know, you have 10 days worth of history that you're really working in all the time.
Absolutely. I think follow-up is so important in sales, and being able to use the system like this to help automate that for you helps make sure you're not burning leads.
Yeah.
And I'm going to hop in and just talk a little bit about the speed of Openly and how integral to having a tool that you can quote a home, an HO5 policy with guaranteed replacement costs, and have it over into those customers' hands who are they're hard to reach. They're objecting you. All you need is their name, their date of birth, and address. Their quote is done. You could have it in their hands. So if they've objected to you, they want to talk to you tomorrow, that's fine. They still already have a quote in their hands and it's done.
Gosh, that's what I love about Openly, is that you know it's going to be a seamless conversation. You know you're not going to have to spend 20 minutes just asking about square footage and all of the rating things that take forever. And so one of the objections you're going to hear when you do reach the person finally, let's say you made it to day 12 and they finally picked up the phone, they're probably going to tell you that they're busy, or they might say something like, okay, so what's my rate? And with Openly, you can get that findable rate. How fast, Liv?
We say 15 seconds, but it's more like 7 to 8.
It's so fast. And so what you don't want to do is say, no worries, I know you're busy, 8 seconds from now, boom, your price is $12.50. You don't want to do that. But if you can keep that person on the phone for 20 minutes and have a really great conversation about their coverages and the Openly product and the amazing coverages for home that we have to touch on while we're all on this call, you have a much better chance of keeping that busy person on the phone for 20 minutes so that you can have a meaty conversation than you do if you're like, well, I know you're busy, but I'm going to have to shop your rate. It's going to take me a while to get the information in the system. So when can I call you back? And then it turns into 2 conversations with this busy person. And if they're that busy, they might not pick up the phone the second time. So I think keeping them on the phone is really important, and that with a carrier like Openly, it's a lot easier to quote live. It's just not as painful. It's not as difficult being able to just carry on the conversation now while you have them on the phone. You don't have to juggle 10 screens to figure out what the rate is. And being able to build the value, have the coverage consultation, and then ask for the sale without it being a long process that drags out a lot. I think one of the things that really kills sales is, look at this, it took 12 days to reach the client for the first time. So why are we so eager to tell the client we're going to gather their information, shop their rate, and call them back? Do you want to wait another 12 days to talk to this person? I'd rather just have the conversation with them today.
I think that's where having that great tech stack, where InsurTech and the position that Quantum has even taken in adopting technology to further the customer relationship really comes in. Because now, and we're going to get into, the sequence we built thinking about relational outbound. Now you're building a relationship that is more and more informed, even if the person, like you said, Caitlin, hasn't responded yet. We're on day 8 and maybe it is going to take them in 12 days to get there. We're at least covering our ground, getting our work done, and preparing for, that final moment that they pick up the phone and answer that we all wait for. So I love that. The space that I've spent a little more time too for you guys, and I think it matches up then with when we have all of this information, how do we present it that's not creepy and invasive of like, oh, I knew your birthday and I stalked your home address, so like we're good, is some of our best practices around like how much content do you put in front of them to get a response. Like how long should a text be? How long should an email be? How much information has to be in there? So we pulled some kind of interesting content around email. So 40 to 125 words on outbound. Again, they're not expecting you. So if they get this big wall of text, they're just not going to be involved yet. They're not going to be engaged in reading through that. And then you guys see the G3 there, grade 3 reading level, which I sat down. I'm like, oh God, I don't even know what that necessarily means. How do we measure that? And I found this really cool piece of technology. It's called Readable, and we'll throw it in the link for everybody on the blog too. It measures the readability of your emails. So you guys can see over here, what grade level is somebody's email on. So this one that I built you guys is just right at that grade 3 level. And I need to move our little score thing. There we go. So there's your grade 3, which is what the average person reads on an outbound. And then I grabbed, because obviously the Quantum team is pretty good at what they're doing, I grabbed your guys's tagline off of your website for your own agency. And you can tell that you guys are pretty intelligent because you guys are coming in as like a junior in high school reading level, which if we send that to somebody that we don't know a lot about, doesn't know a lot about us yet, and they have to decipher and sit down, what does personalized mean to me? What is combined industry knowledge? Like it goes over their head, they tune out, and you lose that 5 seconds that hopefully they click the reply button. So there's some really cool tools out there too that you can begin to adapt and make your content a little more, I'm going to call it respondable.
I love that tip, Kat. And I recently interviewed someone on my podcast. Graham Newell is a behavioral research speaker, and he studies brain science. And this is such a good reminder that our brains are wired to be able to figure out, it only has so much energy, right? So it's only going to key into the most important things. So if we walked into a conference room right now, our brain knows it doesn't need to count all the chairs in the conference room. But when we send an email that's too wordy like that, or it has too many things going on, or it's not simple enough, it's not clear, it doesn't speak to that person's basic needs, then it becomes the chairs in the conference room, and people just, and they just skim past it because their brain is telling them, like, you don't need that information right now. And your brain is going to save calories and not spend mental energy on digesting that piece of information that it's just not wired to. So I think that that's a really good life lesson for all of us in sales, quantum included. Everything we're posting on LinkedIn, people are scrolling. Like, we can only capture their attention for 2 to 3 seconds. So I love your idea of using that grade 3 reading level for that.
Yeah. Adult learning theory is so interesting in that regard, because our attention spans, as good as I think my attention span is, I've been raised in the world where we can watch a 15-second video and still that's too long. So this is a really cool thing to point out.
Yeah, and it's a free tool. I love anything free. If I can find things that are free that work and help, love them. So I pulled these with like even the content that we developed then across a full sequence. So we talked about outbound being 12 business days and such a huge part of quantum. So this stretches us right about to 12 days. This puts us then with the, best practice of 3 emails, 8 total touches on an outbound lead, having 3 phone calls, being a little lighter. That's one of the other recommendations they make, is be a little bit lighter on your voicemails. If somebody's not expecting you, the last thing you want to do is get blocked literally on your phone call. So not hammering them with voicemails, but leaving enough that they still could get back to you, if they have that interest. And then it talks about texting success rate too. And we're going to do a content labs all about texting for you guys. So we can get to that another day. But in an outbound world, having one concise foot in the door text is really, you need permission, of course, but it's about all you can get away with still. Even if you're getting leads from a great lead vendor, or you guys are generating leads and continuing to work them, you still don't want to overdo it with your texts. So built content that is mindful of reading levels, engagement, that response rate, and all that good stuff, and then spread it across that timeline best practice. And this is kind of what we got to. And Caitlin, I feel like your team's maybe a little bit more aggressive than this too. And it certainly, lends room where somebody could put some more phone calls in there. Do you feel like that is necessary in this day and age, or do you feel like there's enough data and value building and relationship building to do outside of phone call? Where do you fall on that?
Well, I think A/B testing in your agency is a really good idea, so you can figure out what works for you. But I'll share one tip that it's just something that worked really well for me when I was selling insurance, and most people bypass this tip. That's okay. We have an agency in Vegas right now that's doing a fantastic job with this. And they posted on the Quantum Agency Facebook page, like, hey, how many times should we call them the first day? When should we call them? And I was like, look, I'll just be honest with you. The time I've had the most success is on day 1, calling them when they're most likely to not be at work anymore. And so I feel your pain, guys. I get it. I totally get why you don't want to, be calling clients at 6:30 or 7 p.m. or on Saturdays, but it is a gold mine. And so when a fresh lead first comes in, you want to call it right away when it's brand new. You want to just be on it and not be like, at the water cooler, getting your Doritos and your Gatorade and like getting your mental game ready. You got to be there when that lead comes in so that you can be the first person that contacts them. That's what you want to try to do. Call them again. Leave a voicemail at that first call. Call them again in 15 minutes, just in case they were on the phone with another agent. I'd say maybe 20 minutes. The most likely, if they were on the phone with a competitor, that person probably just gathered their information, told them they'd call them back after they shopped their rate. So try ringing them again like 15 or 20 minutes later, just as that second attempt to just see if you can catch them when they're not being called by other people. But then just like, if you can swing around at the end of the day and contact them when they're possibly, I understand people work different shifts, but they're most likely to be off work at 6, 6:30 or 7, or even try 5:45 if you can't work that late every single day. You'll be shocked how much faster you can fill your pipeline. And sales is about having that full pipeline. One of the most difficult challenges for great salespeople is that when you have a great month, now you have an empty pipeline again. So having consistent call blocks at the end of the day when you're being available and trying to actively reach out to people when they're most likely off work is huge. The same goes for Saturdays. The Vegas agency that I mentioned got 20 quotes just from answering the phone and connecting with leads on Saturday. And that is tons of activity for their salespeople to be working on Monday. So it does work. It's something to think about. I know it's not for everyone, but I want everyone to be aware of that just because it helped me so much when I was building my sales career in insurance. So sometimes just those practical things. What I'll add to that is, like, let's say you talk to them. Let's just say they did pick up the phone and you were able to quote them, but let's say you weren't able to close it. Maybe you asked for the sale. You weren't able to. They want to talk to their spouse. You emailed them the quote. You tried. At that point, you should know what kind of occupation they have and whether or not that's someone that you need to be reaching out to in the evening. Maybe they work in the evening. Maybe they're a nurse, but they also might be a teacher where, 4:30, 5:30, 6 o'clock is perfect for them. So make sure you're not making your way all the way through a quote and forgetting to find out their occupation and the best time of day to reach them and their cell phone number.
I love that. The other thing you mentioned there, and Liv, I feel like you've lived it actually in the agency, is that second call. Like, get your first call out, get your voicemail there, be present, but then also, try the back in 15, 20 minutes while their other agent is taking this time to, shop them, quote them, get everything put together. Liv, I'm not going to hold you to it, but I heard 8 seconds, and I think the marketing spiel is 15 seconds. In the time that the other agent is talking to them, if you can call them on that second call, and even if you are the second at bat, but you already have a quote prepared, have you found, Liv, on being on both sides of it, that like Openly is able to move fast enough for agents to do that, and then that agents are able to be successful if they, step up to the plate with that much information right off the get-go?
I've had a lot of agents that are so successful on even that first call, because if you can set the expectations that you just need like this piece of information, these 3 items, you're not going to have to hang on the phone too long. You can already have something, like I said earlier, in their email waiting for them with your contact information. You can send them a Calendly link so they can book some time with you later. Setting those expectations at the beginning of those calls, making yourself available, 1, speaks highly of the carrier you're representing, and 2, that you're going to be available in the time of a loss. That's what customers care about. They want to know that, hey, like, I'm available, to Caitlin's point, I'm available to you on a Saturday so that I can take care of your quoting. I'm going to be available in the event of a claim, as will the carrier I'm representing. So making sure that you're setting really clear expectations for them and just getting those small pieces of data just begins a really fruitful relationship between you and your client. So the speed of the tech that Openly, as well as so many other folks, bring to the industry is just taking a lot of the rapport killing out of the conversation. It allows you to customize. It allows you to really learn them and not learn their builder's grade items, their custom items in their home. You get to truly know your customer and then protect them really well.
Absolutely. I think that's the best way to leverage InsurTech like Openly is in the independent insurance space. A lot of agents are fearful of things like an 8-second bindable quote because they are worried that it might be replacing them. And that's what we love about Openly is that they've chosen to work through the IA channel instead of going direct because they believe that it's the right way to do insurance and it's the right way to interact with the client. And so it means that we're not just replacing the conversation and saying, here's your price in 8 seconds, but that you are getting to know your client during that time so that you can make those recommendations. So a couple things, you don't leave the conversation without these, let's say 3 things. So, hey, Javier, what kind of work do you do? Oh my gosh, how long have you been there? Do you like it? What's it been like this year? Have things been crazy? So what kind of work did they do? hey, do you have any pets, any, fur babies? So figure out if they have pets, because that's what, people like to talk about, even if you don't need it for your rating factors. And then don't leave the conversation without figuring out if they have, kids. Hey, do you guys have kids? Do they, are they in the household? Oh my gosh, well, my heart goes out to your senior this year. Will they have a graduation this year? Oh, thank goodness, but those are the three things that need to go in your notes. And then to Liv's point, when she was talking about, the builder's grade and the materials, there's still so much to talk about on the home policy that even once you explain to them like the value that Openly is providing, now you can have a conversation about how their water coverages work, right? Hey, let's talk about the 3 types of water coverage and what's going to be included in this policy, what you need to be aware of. And it allows you to be able to educate the client, talk about scheduled personal property, talk about building codes coverage, and the things that normally get lost in the shuffle because we just had to spend 20 minutes on other rating factors.
Absolutely.
I think that's a really good point around like transitioning into everything that like goes on for the agency and, using a system to track the real like 3 significant points, the relationship of the conversation, not just the home grade and all that kind of information. So I made this because it was quick and easy, but you can tag people now in Agency Zoom. So you guys can have a tag that as you talk to Thomas here, lo and behold, he, is an opportunity with Openly. You could have a tag that he's a teacher or that he's a plumber and that he works funny hours. You could make a tag and a full funnel for yourself of who are your calls that are 4 to 5 because a teacher's home. And who are your calls that are your 5 to 6, even if you do stay a couple nights a week, do a Taco Tuesday in your office, like stay a night a week and get through some of those later working, opportunities that you have. You guys could really easily tag somebody as an evening opportunity, make it like sunset orange, margarita, margarita lime green, and have a Taco Tuesday tag.
I love it.
So it makes it really adaptable in there. And then this will pull up the content probably pretty well. I'm going to go ahead and move Thomas over one so that we can see contacted and see how impactful automation is. So as we come in here now, we can see, hi Thomas, so-and-so with Quantum. This happens to be Thomas's own lead. But getting that content in front of him and then making sure, to your point, Caitlin, that first call goes. Have your script in here, guys. We know on outbound, if someone's not expecting your call, you get about 20 seconds of mental brain space before they lose the value of the voicemail. You get 30 seconds if it's an inbound lead. You can about reference that they contacted you through Facebook, and then you got to get back on your spiel. So have that there for your team. Make sure you're inspecting what you expect, that you're going through and creating a good trail for them to follow. Your to-do. So this is where you can go in, and determine based off of their street address, their birthday, if you have it, to Liv's point, their name. Is this somebody that we approach with an HO3, or is this somebody that we're going to approach with an HO5? And then tag them with that purple tag for an Openly opportunity. So then they get a different text. This is where, you can slide in real smooth, like you've been having a conversation already. Did anyone get to talk to you about the difference of HO3 and HO5? It's pretty important if you have any number of these things. So that's where you can start to, again, to Caitlin's point, if you pick the right partners, like an Openly, or you're using technology that helps you, you can be furthering your relationship before you're on the phone. You can be putting your agency in a really good space that not all InsurTech is the devil or out to steal your job.
Right, definitely.
So yeah, this is some of the initial content. Liv and Caitlin, you guys live it every day. What is your, feedback on some of the initial content? Because this is what's following that whole approach that we put together from the best practices, at least.
I love this because I think that independent agents have a really unique ability to educate on an HO3 versus an HO5, whereas some of our captive friends, they have one policy option. We have multiple policy options. The Openly policy form might not be the best for everyone, but we in the independent agency space have the ability to truly get to know your customer and customize. Openly makes that super easy, but I also am of the firm belief that almost everyone could benefit from an HO5. And they just don't know the differences. They don't know that they're going to get actual cash value and not replacement costs in a lot of pieces. And their items, like the things that are in their home, yes, from a structural standpoint, your replacement may be similar or just as good as an HO3, but the contents of the homes, the things that really make their home what it is, just educating them on, hey, this is how we're going to protect you. And then with Openly, of course, we can still guarantee that replacement costs up to $5 million, because we all know that replacement cost is really distracting. You both know this. We've cut that out of the game a little bit, which I think is really cool. We get to teach our folks why their stuff is valuable, because I don't know if everyone looks at their homes like this is the most valuable item. They should, but we get to remind them how special it is that, like, this is your home that you built. These are your things that you've grown with your family. So protect them correctly.
I really love that too. And I think even as we get into like the email content, so like making sure somebody knows the difference, like, you know, it covers your physical home and other structures, again, your belongings, but also like when something bad happens, creating that opportunity that your agent's not only going to be there for you, but what their recommendations, like your actual policy is going to be there too. Like your HO5 is your replacement cost, and like you guys have a guaranteed replacement cost. So, you know, I'm not going to spend a bunch of time in paperwork, submitting receipts on my claim to try and rebuild my house. I'm not going to have a bunch of named perils that are no longer meeting my requirements, you know, for whatever reason. So like getting them back to normal sooner. And, you know, we talk about HO5, and I think there's a misconception that sometimes it's affluent people. Obviously, that's probably going to be a faster sale. They may already have an HO5. So we certainly want to have some messaging tailored to it, but not all of it. Liv, you've pointed out, there's a lot of people that really could benefit from it. But getting their time back, getting their life returned to normal, protecting their family. Like so many people don't think of a house as an asset, but when you switch from a house to a home, suddenly your family becomes part of that dynamic too, putting their family at the forefront of the communication. Like Caitlin said, who are your fur babies? Like, you know, who are your kids? Like having that in there is just empowering the independent agent, again, to build that great relationship.
Yep. And just using great examples of what you know about your carriers, whether that's Openly, whether that's someone else, talking about their experiences with claims or their experiences with certain things. For example, our claims director has been in Kentucky all week, spending time with a family that had a total loss. They lost everything. She hand-delivered their check, made sure that they had everything they needed. So just learning those things about your carrier partners so that you can communicate those at an extra level to your clients so that they can know, wow, like this company has really strong core values. This company truly is going to have my back if something bad happens. Hopefully it doesn't. We don't want to have to use our insurance, but if we do, just tailoring these custom messages, these automated emails to the carrier, I think would extend even more out than just something general like an HO3 or an HO5. There's a lot of really cool to-dos within this. So I love this automated email structure. I live off of email templates. I just copy paste them and then edit a few things. They're super helpful.
I will say, Caitlin, you probably have a lot of experience for this because obviously you coached Quantum up to be an amazing agency itself. You were a top performer there. Now you're teaching agencies across the country how to build a good process and a solid foundation. The ability to change your process to that person, you know, no automation on this person. They're going to go at their own pace. Or yes, automation, but no texting with this person. Like they're just not comfortable with this. Like the adaptability and the versatility that a good salesperson is trained into. Caitlin, how have you seen that impact your sales cycle or even, you know, the overall customer experience over the years?
I love that, Kat. That is so neat how you just clicked a couple buttons and then the client has a completely different experience. So I think that's the client experience is what's so important in all of this, and training our teams how they can facilitate that, and then giving them the tools like what you just showed to make it easy for them. At Quantum, we want insurance to meet our clients' needs, but also their wants and their lifestyle. And the reality is insurance as it stands today has a lot of pain points in it. It's a lot more like going to the dentist than, you know, meeting with a life coach or something you can look forward to. And so having the ability to do the hard work and the heavy lifting for your client, and having carriers like Openly that are using the data so that the client doesn't have to sit there and give you all the information that can be found online, I think is huge for getting insurance closer to fitting our client's lifestyle. And that really the common thread we want to bring home for our sales teams is, how do we smooth out that experience? What does that feel like from the end user, so that when we're texting, when we're calling, when we're talking about HO3 or HO5, what is that like for that person? With this particular scenario, it's actually kind of complicated to explain to a customer what the difference between an HO3 and an HO5 is. Or it's not super easy. It's actually kind of kludgy, and it's not as seamless as, like, if I saw you didn't have rental car coverage, I've got a quick little talk path for that. Boom, it's a zinger, it's awesome, it's perfect, and it's just like everything clicks. It's not like that when you're trying to sell an HO5. And so I think that we need to encourage our sales teams that it's their role and their purpose to make it as easy as possible for the client to make an informed decision that's in their best interest. So taking the time to educate the client is one of the best things that we can do. Otherwise, they don't know what they don't know. And they don't know that that HO5 is going to offer an immense amount of value outside of an HO3 that they just weren't aware of before. So we have to slow down. We have to think about the client. We have to think about what makes sense for them. And for example, if they have a family member that's in the hospital, I might turn off the texting for that person, right? We need to make sure that our teams are just as passionate about meeting our clients' wants, needs, and lifestyles, so that they're thinking through these things and thinking, okay, I can't expect the client to just get an HO5 right off the bat. So how am I going to educate them and help walk them through that process?
I love that you said that too, because so much of our research has found an outbound lead can become an inbound lead if you have a great support system, a good marketing team that's paired up with your sales team, that, you're not going to get them all. Our best conversion from that new lead to even quoted is still 1 in 4. 1 in 5 is doing good. There's plenty of agencies that don't even get to that. But then you pick good carrier partnerships like Openly, and you have a good marriage between your sales and marketing team. And now you can take resources like this that Openly has that begins to explain it, and you can make sure that, 10 days, 11 days as a lead is probably starting to decrease the likelihood to interact this time, that you're at least providing education on HO3 compared to an HO5. What's really the difference? And that creates a little, we call it FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, that the next time, well, they did bring up some things, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but there were some things on that list that this just didn't make sense. By this linking into what Openly has right here, suddenly somebody can go through and say, like, what is covered? Like, what's that mean? Like, how do we pay claims? To Liv's point, like, what's it mean to have a great value and connection with it? And getting that directly in front of your leads as they're simmering down, so that the next time around, your salesperson is going to have an inbound lead, hopefully. When their home actually does come up from a renewal, or when they move, you get 4 more touches here, you get 2 more touches here, you get a lot more calls, you get a lot more emails. Suddenly you're in the driver's seat because someone's interested in speaking to you because of the amazing relationship you've built around your agency and your subject matter expertise.
I'm so glad you brought up this visual, because I was going to touch on it. I love this one, because when I'm talking to agents all day, I'm always like, folks they don't know what they don't know. They don't know the differences here. And having something in their hands that says what's covered, what's it covered from, and how claims are paid really simplifies that. We like to say everything on our end is beautifully simple. And we've given agents a ton of resources that have that really clean, clear, consistent verbiage for the customers. So yes, you have beautiful, simple tech, but you also have really simple, easy to understand verbiage for your insureds, and we co-brand those for our agents. So it's not just, hey, this is an Openly branded thing. We have, this is Quantum and Openly, and this is how your coverage works. So we've really leveraged the simple verbiage piece so that folks can really understand it, which I love about us.
Absolutely, I agree.
You guys have done a wonderful, fantastic job with it, and certainly put agents at the forefront. So we're grateful, you're helping our thousands of agencies. We kicked off this partnership, and you guys seem to just constantly pop up more and more Openly. And then Caitlin, you've got to experience all of it at scale and continue to better so many new agencies as they choose to join Quantum by giving them these processes where they can focus more on their relationships. So very grateful to both of you ladies. Anything from Content Labs, you know, the difference between HO3 and HO5, how people can approach this, anything that you think we missed that's a really important part of conversation, or is this a pretty good soundbite snippet for somebody to look through? And obviously this content will be available, you know, our best practice that we have here for them will be there for everybody. So anything that you guys think we missed that's worth putting some more color to?
I think you did a great job, Kat. So I would just encourage everyone to take the time to train your sales teams on this so that it feels like riding a bike.
And agents who have not met me, I would love to meet you, and I can talk to you about the Openly HO5, but I can also just talk to you about what I know about insurance as well. I love having these conversations all day long. So if you ever want me to clarify anything or chat with you, I'm happy to meet you.
Liv is a great middle ground for just about everything, guys. I pick her brain constantly because she's been on the tech side, she's been on the agent side. She's absolutely wonderful. So
it's a great resource.
Okay. Glad to have everybody watching. Thank you, Liv and Caitlin, for participating. And we'll see you next month on Content Labs.
Thank you both. This was fun. I could talk insurance any day. So
Bye, ladies.
Bye.
Bye.